Louisa Geiselsoter. Interview. Louisa Geiselsoter thought she was defending Paige Bueckers. Instead, she may have triggered one of the most damaging misfires in recent WNBA memory. Her comments, first made in a foreign-language podcast, then pushed again on Instagram, painted Caitlin Clark as lacking killer instinct while holding Bueckers up as the standard.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
But this wasn't just bad judgment, it was strategic failure. Louisa's team, plagued by poor performance and empty seats, had no grounds to talk dominance. And the attempt to elevate Paige by belittling Caitlin only backfired, fueling a firestorm that pulled Bueckers directly into the line of fire. In trying to redirect the spotlight, Louisa did more harm than good. Not only did her remarks spark widespread backlash, but they also intensified the very comparisons she was trying to control. Caitlin Clark's numbers, influence, and cultural reach made the attack look petty, and it left Paige in a worse position than before. The lesson? In a league struggling with visibility, turning on your biggest star isn't strategy, it's sabotage. This is the exact type of drama that throws gasoline on an already burning fire. And it didn't even start with Paige Bueckers herself. It started with her teammate, Louisa Geiselsoter, who decided to jump on a mic, take aim at Caitlin Clark, and somehow drag Paige right into the middle of it. Louisa went on a podcast, foreign language, by the way, where she made one of the most unnecessary, unprompted, and frankly bizarre statements we've heard in a while. She claimed Caitlin Clark, one of the most dominant, competitive, and culturally significant players in women's college basketball, lacks killer instinct. Then, she flipped it and said Paige Bueckers is the one who has it. No stats, no game footage, no context, just vibes and a questionable opinion that didn't land. And then she doubled down, took to Instagram to make sure the comments were nice and amplified. No backpedaling, no clarification, just full-send negativity about a player who, let's be honest, has done more for women's basketball in the last 2 years than most players have in a decade. What exactly was the goal here? Because from the outside looking in, it looked a lot like someone grasping for relevance by targeting the top. The logic made zero sense. You're trying to question Caitlin Clark's edge, the very thing that's carried her into national stardom and packed stadiums around the country, all while your own team is struggling on the court and at the box office. The math is not Paige Bueckers' controversy. Fans weren't having it. The backlash was brutal and immediate. People called out Louisa for what it was, a tone-deaf, insecure move that reeked of jealousy. It wasn't just about defending Caitlin. It was about dragging Louisa for trying to create conflict when the sport should be rallying around growth and success. But here's the part that took this controversy from dumb to damaging. Paige Bueckers got suspended. Whether she had direct involvement in those comments or not, the ripple effect hit her hard. Her name became attached to a narrative she didn't create. Because once Louisa framed Paige as the real killer on the court by dissing Caitlin in the same breath, she brought Paige into a conversation that was bound to blow up. The suspension added a new layer of chaos. Suddenly, it wasn't just one player with bad judgment. It was a team with internal drama, poor media strategy, and zero control over their image. And unfortunately for Paige, she ended up wearing the fallout. Let's not get it twisted. Caitlin Clark didn't need this kind of negative energy. She's been too busy making history, breaking viewership records, leading attendance booms, raising the WNBA's visibility to heights it hasn't seen in decades. All of this while staying focused, professional, and quiet amid the noise. She didn't respond to Louisa's comments. She didn't need to. Her game said everything. Her stats said everything. Her impact said everything. Meanwhile, the ones trying to stir the pot ended up drowning in their own mess. Because here's the truth. What Louisa said wasn't just wrong. It was strategically reckless. If you're going to throw shade at a player like Caitlin Clark, especially when she's literally helping carry the sport on her back, you better come correct. You better have receipts, wins, attendance. Instead, all she brought was a weak opinion, no data, and a team with a losing record. The Dallas Wings, where Louisa plays, aren't exactly lighting up the standings. Their attendance is nowhere near what Caitlin Clark brings in, and trying to weaponize Paige's name to somehow elevate their image, it backfired hard. Let's be honest, Caitlin Clark's killer instinct has been proven over and over again. In clutch moments, in tight games, under pressure, the girl performs. She delivers. She shows up when it matters. And that's what killer instinct is. Meanwhile, Louise's comments ended up being the ultimate cell phone, because now more people are watching her, and not in the way she hoped. She's become a cautionary tale of what happens when bad takes collide with public perception, and the internet doesn't forget. Even worse, her attempt to defend Paige did the opposite. It put Paige in a hot seat, opened her up to criticism, and dragged her into a comparison she didn't ask for. Fans started dissecting Paige's own performances, putting her side by side with Caitlin, and highlighting just how wide the gap still is. Not because Paige isn't good, she is, but because when you start claiming she's got the edge Caitlin lacks, it invites scrutiny. And right now, that scrutiny isn't working in Paige's favor. There's a reason why Caitlin Clark is getting the spotlight. Her influence isn't just about points, it's about presence. She's not just a top-tier athlete. She's a draw. She gets people watching. She gets people caring. She shifts the entire energy of the sport. And that's not something you can fake. Which brings us to the real issue. This wasn't an isolated case. This is part of a bigger pattern in the WNBA. An ongoing, ugly pattern of players targeting Caitlin Clark for clicks, for attention, or just to take her down a notch. And every time it happens, it reeks of insecurity. From physical fouls to passive-aggressive comments, to now this. There's a clear undercurrent of players who are uncomfortable with what Caitlin represents. Maybe it's her success. Maybe it's her marketability. Maybe it's just the fact that she's become the face of the league faster than some veterans have in a decade. Whatever it is, it's toxic, and it's dragging the league down. Because while Caitlin is bringing in fans, sponsors, and headlines, others are busy trying to remind everyone that they belong here too. But instead of showing it on the court, they're doing it in interviews and Instagram captions. It's exhausting, and it's not working. Louise's strategy, if you can even call it that, was a disaster. Her comments didn't elevate her. They didn't elevate Paige, and they definitely didn't hurt Caitlin. If anything, they made the case even stronger for why Caitlin Clark deserves the spotlight, because she doesn't stoop to this level. She's not online taking shots. She's not manufacturing drama. She's just playing ball and letting the results speak. And now, Louise's credibility is tanked. Paige is suspended. The Wings are facing embarrassment. And Caitlin? She's still breaking records. So let's stop pretending this was some harmless opinion. It wasn't. It was a messy, calculated attempt to redirect attention, and it flopped. Hard. This is the kind of moment that should be a warning shot to everyone in the league. Focus on your game. Stop the petty shade. Stop the passive-aggressive media antics. Stop trying to climb by stepping on someone else's shoulders. Because Caitlin Clark is the moment. And trying to tear her down doesn't make you the next one. It just makes you bitter. Now I want to hear from you. Are Louise's comments just another example of jealousy in the league? Was Paige's suspension fair? Or is she just caught in the wrong spotlight at the wrong time? And how should the WNBA handle these situations moving forward? Like this video if you're tired of the distractions and want to see real talent get the respect it deserves. Drop a comment and let's get into it. And make sure you subscribe because the drama in this league, it's not slowing down anytime soon. So let's talk about where this leaves everyone. Because the dust from this Paige Bueckers, Louise Aguil-Soter, Caitlin Clark triangle is still floating in the air, and it's not settling quietly. What's wild about this situation is how quickly it escalated and how preventable it was. One podcast, one Instagram post. That's all it took to flip the energy from preseason optimism to full-blown chaos. And for what? Clout? Validation? The need to stir a rivalry that didn't exist? Because here's the real kicker. Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers didn't have beef. There was no drama between them. In fact, most fans respected both, understanding that, yes, Caitlin's the face right now, but Paige is undeniably talented in her own right. There's always room in women's basketball for more than one star. But Louise's comments forced an awkward spotlight onto a dynamic that didn't need fixing and turned it into a comparison war neither athlete asked for. Let's not sugarcoat it. Louisa tried to manufacture a narrative. She tried to frame Paige as the true competitor, subtly suggesting that Caitlin's rise was somehow incomplete, lacking that final spark. That killer instinct. The one thing that supposedly separated great players from legends. But here's the problem. Caitlin Clark has shown more killer instinct than half the league combined. She's pulled her team back from double-digit deficits. She's carried games on her shoulders. She's made shots when the entire arena was watching, expecting her to either rise or crumble. And she's risen. Repeatedly. If that's not killer instinct, what is? Louise's take didn't just fall flat. It exposed a bitter edge that fans are done tolerating. And this isn't just about one player making a mistake. This speaks to a deeper dysfunction in the league. The inability to embrace success when it's not your own. The WNBA is in a moment. A real one. Not a forced marketing push or a fleeting social media trend. There's real momentum right now. Games are selling out. Ratings are climbing. People who never used to watch are tuning in and staying. And a huge chunk of that progress is tied to one name, Caitlin Clark. You'd think that would be a unifying force. You'd think players would be thrilled that the league finally has a new superstar who's drawing in sponsorships, headlines, and attention. But instead, there's this strange bitterness, this quiet resistance from some corners of the league that keeps showing up in moments like this. The podcast, the shade, the not-so-subtle Instagram follow-up, and now the suspension. The fact that Paige Bueckers, who didn't even publicly make the comments herself, is the one facing official consequences? That says a lot. Whether it was due to internal drama, media pressure, or team optics, the result is the same. She's sidelined. And all because her teammate decided to pick a fight with a player she couldn't match on any level, statistically, competitively, or culturally. If there's one thing this saga highlights, it's the massive gap between performance and perception. Because Louisa tried to frame Paige as the superior competitor. But the numbers, the audience, and the impact, they're all screaming Caitlin. You can't manufacture relevance. You earn it. And Caitlin earned it. Meanwhile, the Dallas Wings, Louisa's team, are floundering. Their attendance is underwhelming. Their performance? Inconsistent. Their media strategy? Clearly non-existent. They couldn't even manage to prevent one of their own players from starting a fire that ended in a PR disaster and a teammate suspension. And let's not pretend this is some isolated misstep. The WNBA has been dealing with a pattern, a toxic, jealousy-fueled pattern that rears its head every time Caitlin Clark gets a win. Physical targeting during games. Passive-aggressive social media posts. Offhand comments that feel a little too personal. The message is clear. Some players resent her presence. Why? Because she showed up and changed everything. She's not just another player. She's the reason people are watching. She's the reason networks are paying attention. She's the reason that a whole new generation of fans is talking about the WNBA in November. And while she's doing all of that, what are some players doing? Complaining, undermining, trying to question her mentality, as if that's going to make a dent in the mountain of accomplishments she's already stacked up. Let's break it down. Caitlin Clark led her team through historic runs. She consistently performs in clutch moments. She's broken records that stood for decades. She fills arenas on the road. She's doing the impossible. And somehow, that's seen as threatening instead of inspiring. It's baffling. And Louise's attempt to rewrite the narrative with one lazy quote, it only amplified how out of touch some players are with the reality of where the sport is headed. It's not about taking anything away from Paige Bueckers. Paige is a phenomenal athlete. But the moment you pit her against Caitlin, involuntarily, you invite a level of comparison that no one's ready for. Because when you strip the hype away and just look at what each has done, it's not even close. Paige isn't the one breaking viewership records. Paige isn't the one changing team valuations. Paige isn't the one turning college and WNBA games into must-watch events. And none of that is Paige's fault. But it becomes her problem the second her name is weaponized against Caitlin Clark. And that's exactly what Louisa did. The fallout was predictable and entirely deserved. Louisa's reputation took a hit. Her credibility evaporated, and any goodwill she may have had as a teammate, probably on life support. The worst part? She didn't even defend Paige effectively. She exposed her. Because now, instead of fans celebrating Paige's own journey, they're focused on whether she really measures up to Caitlin Clark. And the internet, it's ruthless with comparisons. You don't want that smoke unless you're ready to back it up. And this time, there's no backup. It's not even just a Paige versus Caitlin thing anymore. This has become a league-wide issue. A question of how players, teams, and execs handle success when it's not evenly distributed. Because right now, Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's biggest draw. And if the league is smart, they'll protect her, elevate her, and build around her. Not let players with bruised egos turn every media cycle into a petty rivalry. Let's stop acting like this is normal. Caitlin Clark isn't being held accountable. She's being targeted for being successful, for being marketable, for bringing in a level of exposure that, frankly, some players didn't expect and can't handle. And when players like Louisa step out of line and try to stir the pot, it's on the league to draw a line. Not just with suspensions, but with culture. Because this culture of internal resentment, it's holding the league back. It's undermining its own future. Caitlin Clark isn't the problem. She's the solution. You don't grow a league by tearing down the star that's lifting it. You grow it by building a foundation around that momentum. You let the rising tide lift all boats. But some people are too busy trying to punch holes in theirs out of spite. So where does this go from? Louisa's credibility is toast. Paige Bueckers is cleaning up a mess she didn't make. Caitlin Clark is soaring above the drama, as usual. In the WNBA, it's at a crossroads. Do you want the growth you say you want? Do you want the sponsors, the viewership, the respect? Then you need to act like it. You need to treat your stars like stars and your toxic habits like the threats they are. This incident with Louisa and Paige wasn't just a media blip. It was a revealing moment. A mirror held up to a league that's still figuring out how to handle success. And until that reflection changes, these PR implosions will keep happening. Let's be real for a second. This whole situation didn't just expose one player's bad take. It peeled back the curtain on a league struggling to figure out how to handle its own stardom. And that's the uncomfortable truth no one seems ready to say out loud. Because what happened with Louisa Giel-Soder and Paige Bueckers wasn't an isolated misstep. It was a full-on, slow-motion collision between personal insecurity, bad media instincts, and a league that still hasn't built the structure to support the kind of spotlight Caitlin Clark brings. And the result? A disaster that should have never happened. Louisa didn't just wake up and decide to throw shade. She did it with intent. She went on a podcast in her own language and made a clear statement. Caitlin Clark lacks killer instinct. That wasn't analysis. That wasn't thoughtful critique. That was disrespect, plain and simple. And for what? There was no provocation. Caitlin didn't say anything. She didn't stir the pot. She just kept playing, kept delivering, kept being the reason thousands of fans are watching women's basketball for the first time in their lives. Louisa wasn't trying to defend Paige, because let's be honest, Paige didn't need defending. There was no attack, no insult to respond to. All she did was bring her teammate into a war of words that she created out of thin, and then came the Instagram post. Just in case the podcast didn't do enough damage, Louisa made sure to repeat the comment publicly. Doubled down. Posted with her whole chest like the internet wasn't going to drag her the second they saw it. Spoiler alert, they did. The backlash was immediate, fierce, and justified. Fans were confused. They saw it for exactly what it was, an irrelevant player trying to punch up for attention. And they called it out, loudly. The worst part? Her attempt to promote Paige as some sort of superior competitor backfired. Instead of lifting Paige up, it made her a target. Because when you frame someone as better than Caitlin Clark without the stats, achievements, or cultural weight to back it up, you're asking for a comparison you're not ready to. Now, instead of letting Paige's game speak for itself, fans are dissecting every move she makes. Every missed shot, Every quiet quarter. It's all being held up to Caitlyn's performances, and that's not a spotlight you want if you didn't ask for it. And unfortunately for Paige, that spotlight came with consequences. A suspension. Whether it was related to internal conflict, media mishandling, or just damage control, it doesn't matter. She's benched, and her name is now tied to a controversy she didn't even start. Louisa didn't just fumble the bag. She lit it on fire and handed it to her teammate. This is the kind of thing that sets a franchise back. The Wings were already struggling with attendance and performance. Now, instead of talking about how to improve on the court, everyone's talking about this. About who said what. About whether Paige should have spoken up. About whether the team even knows what it's doing. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, still winning. Still drawing record crowds. Still selling out arenas in cities she doesn't even play for. Still being the exact reason this league has a future. And that's what's so maddening about all of this. Because Caitlyn is doing exactly what the WNBA has needed for years, bringing in attention, dollars, and respect. And some players are treating her like a threat instead of a gift. Louise's comments weren't just petty, they were damaging. Not just to herself, not just to Paige, but to the league as a whole. Because every time stuff like this happens, it sends a message: we don't know how to handle success when it's not ours. And that message, it sticks. The WNBA has a choice to make. Keep letting jealousy drive the narrative, or finally step up and protect the players who are building its future. The toxic energy, the side eyes, the passive-aggressive shade, it's played out. It's small, and it's dragging the whole sport down. The drama didn't help anyone. Louisa looks bitter. Paige looks caught in the crossfire. And the WNBA looks like it can't keep its own house in order. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark stays quiet, keeps hooping, and keeps proving exactly why she's untouchable. So now we want to know what you think. Was Paige caught up unfairly? Should Louisa face more consequences? And how can the WNBA clean up this mess before it happens again? Like this video if you're tired of watching players sabotage their own league. Drop a comment and let us know who you're riding with. And make sure you subscribe because this saga, it's far from over.